I'm Mark Simon.
And I'm Bob Marks.
Welcome to the game. We're happy to be back on whatever you call this. I guess we can't call it the air, but here we are. We're happy to welcome Sheriff Ken Binder, who is the, the 27th Sheriff of San Mateo County, was appointed by the Board of Supervisors on November 12th, 2025, after about a year of back and forth about the prior sheriff and her being fired by the same Board of Supervisors who hired Sheriff Binder. He has a 27-year career in law enforcement, worked in the Santa Clara County Sheriff's Office in nearly every division of the agency, as an executive member team for more than a decade. He was the undersheriff in Santa Clara County. When he retired from there, he served as interim chief of police for the city of Gilroy, and now he's with us. So welcome. Happy to have you here.
Sheriff, you've had the opportunity to meet with employees from across the department. Give us a sense of the morale and what you've taken away from those meetings.
Thank you. First of all, good morning, gentlemen. Very nice to be with you this morning. It's an honor to talk with you. Yes, I have. So I'm embarking on a little bit past 3 months now, and I've been making my way to talk with all of the folks here in the organization. And what I've really learned is we've got some great people. We've got a lot of really good people in the organization that are in the profession for the right reasons. They're doing a good job, and really they just they want to get out of the headlines and go about doing their job for public safety. That's both in the jails and in the streets. And what I found is they're really resilient. One of the things you find out, you don't find out what someone's made of when things are going perfectly and well. Anyone can, put on a smile and do a great job when things are going well. But when things are challenging, that's when you really see what someone's made of. And I really want to commend the office through some difficult times in the past year or so. The staff that we have, they came into work and they continue to put their profession first and to do the job. And they've shown that they're resilient, that they've got the right stuff. So I've been very pleasantly surprised to see that.
Did you sort of expect that you'd find some people who were, I don't know, traumatized by the experience? I mean, it was a pretty rough, it really became public for about a year, but obviously things were going on well before then that were upsetting people, that were making people ponder what the future of their careers were.
Yes, well, they are human, and so all of us are human. We're not robots behind the uniform, and I like to remind people of that. So everyone handles difficulties in different ways, and for sure we can't look past some of the trauma, the psychological trauma that some of our folks have really experienced. And employee wellness, one of the things we want to do is, as we're talking to folks, we want to hear from them, for them to be able to talk to peer groups and the current leadership, just so that we know what they really went through, what they felt, and how to be able to resolve that best and move forward.
Yeah. You said, I'm quoting, first thing I'm going to do is install an executive leadership team that has the respect and trust of the organization. I gather you feel you've accomplished that.
Yes, sir. I feel like I have got a great undersheriff in Chris Young, and he is a culture expert. And one of the things I want to make sure long-term and moving forward is that we develop the best culture possible for a large law enforcement agency for years to come, beyond my time here, beyond his time here, but that we really lay the foundation. And so he's already doing a monthly training session, if you will, to address and help shape culture. And we made it voluntary initially, and we've had over 70 people just voluntarily sign up to start attending these sessions. So he's one. Obviously, I brought back Assistant Sheriff Ryan Monahan. We've had a couple of vacancies for, well, the jail assistant sheriff has been vacant for a number of years. And so I've recently done internal promotions to an objective testing program. And we ended up selecting Assistant Sheriff Frank Del Porto, who is overseeing our jails, and Assistant Sheriff Mark Myers, who's overseeing operations. And then Assistant Sheriff Ryan Monahan is overseeing our support services, professional staff, internal affairs.
Sheriff, over the last year.
My throat has gone dry. Apologies.
That's okay. Over the last year, the former sheriff insisted that the department was fully staffed. Others said that was not the case. Where are you today in terms of staffing levels in the department? Yes,
we're getting there. I've been already just in the past 3 months to a number of academy graduations that we've had staff graduate. We're around 20 to 30 vacancies on the sworn side at the moment, so which is very reasonable for a large agency like ours. We're continuing to recruit though, and we've really set a high standard to make sure that the folks that are still in the process and that have been recently hired meet our high expectations. So we have an 18-month probationary period where we can watch and evaluate. They go through an academy, they go through either jail training or field training or both, depending on the classification. And so we've set a high standard. We're paying attention, and we're making sure that the folks that we have meet those standards.
You talked about the culture, and I guess I'm curious, what does that mean? And what does it mean in context of managing your people, managing newcomers, especially given the spotlight that law enforcement is under? Not all law enforcement necessarily, but I guess ICE. I don't know if they qualify as law enforcement or not. We'll talk about that in a second. But you did say you were going to conduct a top-to-bottom audit of the department's policies in internal affairs cases. What's the status of those, and what do you mean by culture? That's a word that gets tossed around a lot.
Yes. So a culture is it's making sure that, well, first of all, we want a professional organization. We don't want cowboys out there. We want to make sure that our staff are well trained and provide that public service in a professional manner with best practices. We don't want silos. We don't want one patrol bureau kind of doing police work one way and another patrol bureau doing police work a different way. We want to make sure that we're all on the same page in the same mission. And it's not just how they treat the public. It's also internally, how are they managed? How is information flow? Is there opportunity for dialogue? Is there does our staff have a chance to provide input and have their ideas considered? I want to make sure that moving forward, I had mentioned it in our interview before, but I don't care if staff supports one sheriff's candidate or another, because every 4 years there's an election. I don't want it to be a culture of politics and whose side are you on. I want it to be a meritocracy where it goes by merit, that promotions are done by merit and integrity, that we make sure that people that are doing the job professionally, regardless of who they may or may not have supported, are the ones that get opportunity for advancement. So that's what I'm talking about when I talk about culture. And the other part of culture is accountability. So you mentioned the IA cases. We've got a number of IA cases that had been that I inherited when I got here, and we reinstituted our professional services bureau. which is kind of, I tell them, you're the gatekeeper of our, it's quality control. It's making sure that staff are held accountable so that if things come to light about concerns, that we address them. We don't just sweep them under the rug. So the team is working through all of those cases, and when there's discipline to be had, we are enforcing that.
One of the challenges, I may not understand this correctly, so you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but there's not quite a statute of limitations, but there's, in the police officer's Bill of Rights, they're allowed a certain amount of time in which this thing has to be addressed, or the allegations, I guess, go away. Some of these have been around for a while. Are you finding that a lot of these internal affairs investigations have simply expired?
Unfortunately, there are a number of cases that have been beyond the statute of limitations. So the California Peace Officer Bill of Rights gives management 1 year from the time of knowledge of an incident to investigate and issue discipline. And however, it doesn't magically go away beyond the year. We're still, for those cases that have timed out, we're still aware of what happened. And although the law doesn't allow us to take disciplinary action, in other words, I can't suspend, terminate, demote someone based on whatever the case was, I can still take corrective action if there's training that needs to be done, if there's policy that wasn't understood. So we can still take non-punitive measures to bring whatever the behavior was into alignment.
Yeah. The one everybody, I'm sure, wants us to ask about is the allegations against Carlos Tapia, the president of the Deputy Sheriff's Association. Can you tell us the status of that whole matter?
Well, as you know, peace officer personnel matters are a matter of confidentiality, so I can't get into any of the details of the case, but I will tell you that he's back working, and we're very happy about the fact that he's back working, and he has been doing a great job over the last several months.
You talk about law enforcement, we talk about culture. I want to segue into the whole issue with ICE. And first and foremost, as a professional law enforcement executive who clearly takes pride in the work he has done, do you regard ICE agents as true law enforcement figures?
Well, I want to be careful how I answer that, because the way I like to describe it is they are federal officers dealing with federal law. That is not our job as the sheriff's office. That's not the local police department's job. So our job is to enforce California law and local ordinances, and the vehicle code. And so, the federal enforcement does their thing, and we do our thing. We do work with the FBI, who's a federal law enforcement agency, and so, on certain cases, but not touching immigration, of course. So yeah, they have their job and we have our job.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mark.
Well, so the question then is, during the process by which you were selected to be the next sheriff, you said, I will never allow our deputies to ask anyone what their immigration status is. We won't allow ICE anywhere that the public is not allowed. As an overseer of the jails, we won't cooperate with ICE. That's the county policy, is zero cooperation with ICE. Mm-hmm. But as we've seen in other cities and other communities, they show up and they can be a very disruptive element. Sometimes it seems purposefully. Mm-hmm. Is there a point at which, and I know this is difficult because there are federal statutes that basically prohibit anybody from interfering with a federal agent in the conduct of their duties. But the question, I guess, is, could you see your department intervening if there's unlawful behavior taking place? If ICE comes into our community in large numbers?
Right. So everything you quoted from me is absolutely correct and still the case. Are you guys there? Did I lose you?
Yeah, no, we're just focusing on,
Okay.
he's switching the screen so that you're
Okay.
the
All right.
main picture here.
Yes, all of those, I stand by those quotes, and that is absolutely the case. We do not cooperate with ICE. ICE is not telling us when, for the most part, as far as I know, at least since I've been here, they're not telling us if they're coming to our area or when they're coming, but we do not cooperate with them. We do not allow them in non-public areas of any county building. We don't cooperate with the detainer requests that come into our jails. In fact, we put a report on our website and our transparency portal that shows all the number of requests that we get from ICE and what we and a response to those. So, and then you also highlighted earlier, my deputies will never be allowed to ask someone their immigration status or if they have, papers, documentation papers for citizenship or anything like that. So, the trust that we serve the entire community, and that trust is really important. We cannot do our job without community trust. I don't want anyone in San Mateo County to ever be afraid to call 911 if they've been a victim or if they've been a witness or if they've seen something or if there's an issue in their neighborhood that they need to call about. We aren't concerned about immigration status, and we are a full service public safety law enforcement organization. We'll continue to be that.
Sheriff, in the aftermath of the tragic events we saw in Minnesota, it appears now that this Department of Corrections and ICE are working together to do what they call identify the worst of the worst. Does that make sense to you? I realize we're talking about the state in Minnesota, but does that kind of approach make sense to you to go after serious violent criminals in prisons and jails and work with ICE to have them removed? They've indicated that they don't always agree with each other on this, but they've found a way to identify a large number of people that they believe should be deported.
Right. Well, we're following the local law, and San Mateo County has an ordinance 2.48 that prohibits us from sharing data of undocumented people. So we can't give names, date of birth, even if they're in our jail for whatever crime they're in. We are not allowed to share that information with them. So, I'm grateful to see that that we don't want to see armed confrontations in the streets. But in terms of my office, we're still not cooperating with ICE at this point.
Well, speaking of armed confrontations in the streets, one of the things that struck me about watching some of the stuff going on in Minneapolis was the apparent zero presence of the Minneapolis Police Department on the scene. Now, maybe they were there and they just weren't in the cameras, but I guess the question is, there's 1,000 ICE agents are sent into North Fair Oaks. There's 1,000 demonstrators and they're confronting each other. What is the role of the sheriff's office in that kind of a situation? Trying to keep the peace, trying to maintain order.
Right.
And I guess the question is, if there appears to be some sort of confrontation building and you do intervene, which way will you be facing? Will you be facing the ICE people or will you be facing the protesters? Whose side will you be on? I guess is
right.
bluntly putting it.
Yeah, we don't take. I mean, we don't take sides. We are really. I have a California constitutional duty to maintain the peace. And so, in any situation, whether it involves ICE or anyone else, people exercising their lawful First Amendment right have a right to do it peaceably. And we want to make sure that right is protected. And and like you had said before, we don't have a legal ability to interfere with what ICE is doing. So they're going to do what they're going to do, but we're going to make sure that that there's still law and order and safety in our community, regardless of what's happening.
I assume, like all of us, you saw what happened, the videos, what happened in Minneapolis. As a law enforcement professional, what was your reaction to that?
I'm not happy about what I've seen over in Minnesota, and it really it hurts to see the country going through this. So and I'm just really hoping that we can maintain peace in our community here in San Mateo County.
Sheriff, the Nancy Guthrie case in Tucson has really brought to the forefront advances in technology in a variety of ways that gives law enforcement, and for that matter, criminals, new tools to work with. How does this affect the kind of people that you might be looking to bring into the department?
Yeah, so the next generation of peace officer, they're definitely more technologically savvy than my generation or the generation that came before me. And so we really need to make sure that we're using, law enforcement traditionally has been a step behind, at least local law enforcement has been a step behind technology advancements. So we want to make sure that we're trying to keep up and utilizing everything that's possible to make sure our communities are safe.
Let's talk a little bit about the new budget initiative focused on human trafficking and domestic violence and child abuse prevention and response. What's the role of your office there, and why do you think it was important to launch this initiative?
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. So the county is very committed to protecting our youth and adults who are human trafficked, and they've put their money where their mouth is. And District Attorney Steve Wagstaff has been a champion and a leader in this area, and his office houses the unit that's going to lead, and the sheriff's office, we're going to partner with him, and we're going to have a fully dedicated detective to work with the DA's office and their team in addressing the issue of human trafficking. And human trafficking is modern day slavery, and it comes in the form of both labor and forced sexual acts. So we really want to address it and focus on it. And in the past, the county has done a lot in terms of education, but our focus moving forward in this year is going to be on operations and holding people accountable that are trafficking victims and getting victims connected with services and shutting down those businesses that are fronts for human trafficking.
Acknowledging that it's a crime that often is hard to catalog because so much of it takes place underground. But how acute of a problem is it in San Mateo County, which I think most people would not think of this county as a place where human trafficking in particular is a real crisis?
Right. It's everywhere. It's all over California. So it's in our community. It's up and down the state. And like you had said, it flies under the radar. So your average person doesn't have any idea that it's here, but it is here. And so we've put together a team that's going to go after and uproot it.
Go ahead. The Deputy Sheriff's Association played a pivotal role in ousting the former sheriff. How do you balance the need for a good relationship with the DSA and the realities of leading the department and dealing with budget limitations?
Yes, that's a great question. It's something that I have experience doing. So as the undersheriff, I at my former agency, I led the management and executive team in meet and confers with the unions. We had 4 unions there. And so it really is a balancing act. And I've been off to a good start with our unions here and in San Mateo County, and really what I always fall back to is I want to be reasonable. So there's requests, and we will evaluate everything, and we will land on something that's reasonable and makes sense for the community. At the end of the day, it's the community that we serve. They expect us to be responsible with the funds that they give us, and with the responsibility and authority to make arrests, and we want to make sure that we're diligent with that. So that's where I fall back on, but I'll always hear and listen, and then we'll evaluate, and then we'll discuss, and we'll land somewhere that I always believe is reasonable. The other thing we did was we brought the unions back to the table. So at our management meetings, they have a seat at the table so that they can hear what's being discussed, that they're not surprised on management decisions that could be coming down the pipe, and they have an opportunity to meet and discuss, and then come back and talk with us. So
San Mateo County is not as big as Santa Clara County, not to overstate the obvious, but it's there's a lot to learn. I mean, how are you spending your days getting to know the department, getting to know the people in it, and getting to know the county? Because it is a diverse place geographically as well as demographically.
Sure. Yeah, we have over 800 staff here in the Sheriff's Office, so it is a large agency, and that's just one area of my job. We've got the community, and then we've got the county administration. So I've definitely got a lot of things pulling on my time, but you know, at the end of the day, I got to remind myself that this is a marathon and not a sprint. So I'm trying to sprint right out of the gate. I've done a lot of community meetings, getting out there and I've met with all of our contract city managers and some of the electeds, and doing meet and greets in the community and trying to get to know the community, and just meeting with all sorts of folks in the community, but also making the rounds within the sheriff's office itself, and then meeting with the other county department heads as well. So it's a lot, but I'm just remind myself it's a marathon, and just keep plugging away at it. But it's been long days. I've been putting in a lot of hours, but because I just want to try to stay on top of everything as much as possible, and get up to speed on everything as much as possible. And we really want to get the blood flowing in the organization. We've had some stagnation, and now we're getting the blood flowing again. And I just want to make sure that our exec team is not doesn't stymie that. We want to keep it moving.
We talked earlier about it's been a very difficult time the last decade for police in general. Are you noticing less people being interested in going into law enforcement in general? Have you noticed that over the last decade?
You know, the pendulum kind of swings back and forth on that. There are, there's times when people really rush to get into law enforcement, and at the height of the tech boom, we weren't seeing a lot of applicants. But then when there was a crash around 07, 08, we ended up getting a lot of applicants, and so we kind of see that pendulum go back and forth. And right now we're getting a lot of candidates that are interested, which is really good to see. And I really have to give credit to people right now that are willing and looking to go into law enforcement, because it's a very high profile position. It's highly scrutinized. Our deputies are thrown into really a lot of gray areas where they have to make quick decisions, and they will be second guessed and Monday morning quarterback to the nth degree. And so it's a very challenging profession. But it's a profession that is needed, because if we don't have peace officers, dedicated professional peace officers, we're in trouble as a society, and as a community. We want the community to stay a safe place to live and work and visit. And so my hat's off to those looking to this profession. And I will say, it's also, when you do the job right, it's really a fulfilling position. So this is a noble career field, and I remind our younger folks that are looking to get into this line of work that this is a job that you do well. You can go to sleep at night and feel good about having meaning in your life and doing something that really does make a positive difference. Now, our responsibility on the management end is to make sure that they have the right training, that that you don't just learn police work by osmosis or by watching what's on TV or in videos, because you're only seeing a fraction of what police work actually is there. And for the public, when it's challenging for us, because when you're only seeing law enforcement has 1 million contacts a day with the public. And the vast majority of those are phenomenal contacts. They're professional, they're done well, but it's that contact that doesn't go well that gets broadcast and that everyone sees. And when that's all you're seeing, it can shape the public mindset that, hey, that's what police work is, or that's all that's occurring, when really it's such a small piece. And when it does go bad, then we obviously address that. We fire, we suspend, we terminate, depending on what actually occurred, and sometimes arrest as well. So, but it's a great job. There's a lot of opportunity to do well and to help people, and that's really where a lot of the meaning comes from.
Well, you talk about it, this fulfilling. Obviously, it's been a career that's been meaningful and fulfilling to you. Is there an example of something you've done in the course of your career, maybe even way back when you were on patrol or something, that always comes to mind when you start talking to people about why this is a good profession?
Well, it's just the opportunities that are there. I mean, I treated every interaction with the public, like I try not to take it for granted. And this is what I'm trying to instill in my staff as well. Community engagement is one of the 3 pillars that I've been talking to my staff about. And it's not, we have units that are dedicated to that, but it's not just those units, it's all of us, and it's every contact you make in the public. So, when I was a sexual assaults detective, the first case I made, I remember just the gratification I had, and the helping the family get justice for their young victim. And I don't want to go into details, but it just felt like, wow, this is really making a positive difference, and it's something I feel good about. But it's not just that. It's when I was working patrol. Even if I was going to issue someone a citation, I always did it with courtesy, with professionalism, and I know it's not a pleasant experience for people, but when I would remind them, hey, we do this because we've had a lot of accidents in this area, and we know that when we issue citations, the accidents go down, and this really is for public safety, and we want to make sure that everyone's safe. So it's like every interaction is an opportunity to be that good ambassador for the profession, and that's what I'm trying to instill in my staff as well.
Sort of out of left field, do your deputies in patrol, do they wear body cameras?
Yes, of course. That's part of, it's part of quality control. And that's good for everyone. That's good for the public. It's good for our deputies. I think one of the things, it's funny when the whole talk about body-worn cameras first came out, those of us in management for law enforcement, we loved it. We thought it was a great idea. That the hindrance was the money, because it's so expensive. But we knew it would give the opportunity to, when complaints come in, that we could actually show people what happened. And so it really shows what our deputies are experiencing out in the field. And when they do make a mistake, it also provides that evidence for us to be able to address that as well. So it's really on both sides been eye-opening, I think, overall for folks.
Well, Sheriff Ken Bender, thank you. We know you're busy. We appreciate you taking time to be with us today. And we'll see you maybe at the end of your first year. We'll revisit this, see how things are going.
It's an honor, gentlemen. Thank you, and have a great day.
Thanks. Bob, I think we want to do a bullpen, a little bit extra. Anything you want to talk about relative to the sheriff or anything else? If not the sheriff, I want to get your take on the governor's race. The Democrats are meeting in their convention in San Francisco this upcoming weekend. Nobody has dropped out, but somebody has to eventually, right? On the Democrats, there are 9 candidates. Some of them are polling at 3%, for God's sakes.
Yeah, somebody has to drop out, or somebody has to emerge as the leading candidate on the Democratic side. That tends to kind of change the dynamics in the field. It's what there's been a lot of talk about how the Republicans could benefit from having this, logjam on the Democratic side with a lot of candidates that at least have a little bit of visibility and are known. So I would expect to see an effort pretty soon for the Democrats to coalesce more around 1 or 2 candidates. People are waiting to see what Nancy Pelosi might do. There's talk that she might support Eric Swalwell. But right now, I know the Democrats want to give this thing a chance to play out. They don't, neither party really likes to get involved in pushing people around. So we'll have to see what goes on. One other thing that we didn't get to with the sheriff, but I find interesting is, and it's highlighted again in the Nancy Guthrie case, is the territorial tensions that exist between the FBI and local jurisdictions. You hear about that all the time. My guess is in most cases, it tends to work pretty smoothly. But in that case, there just seems to be a real breakdown in terms of the 2 entities working together.
Well, this is one of the things that's so interesting about a sheriff, in that it's an elective office. And so it's going to have, to some degree, an inherent amount of politics. And we really saw that with the Sheriff Corpus, the way that Sheriff Bender has been named. May be less political than in other cases, but every other police chief in the world, or not in the world, but in the United States, is appointed by a governing body, and so it tends to take some of the politics out of it, or I guess it narrows the focus of the chief's politics. But in any event, it's so one of the factors that weighs into this, and sheriffs are so different from county to county and state to state. I mean, one of the Republican candidates is a former sheriff, and he's somewhere to the right of Darth Vader. I mean, he's just
he's the current sheriff.
Current sheriff, that's right. Yes, and so stylistically, they're going to be different, and I think that probably complicates any sort of law enforcement cooperation. Back in my days when I was a police reporter, I mean, it was almost a running joke if you had multi-agencies. Nobody was in charge and everybody was resentful. It was always kind of interesting because there is some territorialism, if that's a word. Any other thoughts about our sheriff and what you saw and what you heard today?
Yeah, he comes across as a real law enforcement professional. He's not, as you see, he's certainly not trying to get involved in any of the politics that surround this. He seems to me to be a pretty good choice in the aftermath of what we've seen here in the last year plus. He is going to have to run for re-election if he chooses to do so. And for people like him who are real professionals, that's not necessarily a comfortable situation, having to ask people for money and playing the role of a political candidate.
Yeah, and given everything that's happened, it's hard to imagine he's going to run for re-election without an opponent. It's just a couple of years away, 2028.
Yeah.
And There are rumors that Christina Corpus still thinks she should have the job and is telling people, "I'll be back." Never mind that it's an Arnold Schwarzenegger line from the movie. But it does make you wonder if she fully understands what has happened to her. Obviously, she still thinks that this has been a railroad job and not a genuine reaction to her leadership or lack thereof.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, one of my rules of thumb about employment is, and the first rule is never do a bad job well, because then you're stuck doing it forever. But the second rule is, if you have to do a job, try to follow somebody who was bad at it.
Yeah.
And so you're just going to, you can do a mediocre job and you're going to look good by comparison. That's not exactly what Sheriff Binder's goals are, but it had to be that he's coming to work with a bunch of people who were ready for things to quiet down and to return to what might pass as normal.
Yeah. And the other thing that he's got going for him is at least 4 of the 5 members of the Board of Supervisors, I think, are really invested in him. And so I think that may have been a factor in the nearly $1 million that the board allocated earlier this month to fight domestic violence, trafficking, and to provide new criminalists to process DNA.
Yeah, Supervisor David Kenneth was the one vote in the 4-1, who and immediately afterwards pledged his support to the sheriff. So clearly there was something that he felt he needed to do to support somebody else. But that brings up the race for assessor. Jim Arizari, who's been the chief assistant there for any number of years, has announced he's running. He has yet to form a campaign committee as of yesterday. Meanwhile, Canepa has announced he had an event up in Millbrae that drew quite a large crowd. He is telling people he's got 70 local elected officials who have endorsed him, and he's raised over $100,000. At the event in Millbrae, he said he was going to raise $500,000. So your quick take on that race, is it still up for grabs? I mean, the fact is he's not running unopposed, so that's better in terms of there being a race. But what do you think?
Well, again, the ballot designations, particularly for those types of offices, controller, treasurer, otherwise, carry some weight with the voters. But I think the key to this is really whether Irizarry can mount a campaign, raise some funds, get the endorsements that he has, try to get them more involved in the race. And there isn't necessarily a lot of time to get all that done. So at this point, I'd say Canepa has a huge advantage. We'll just have to see how that plays out.
Mail-in ballots drop on May 5th.
Yeah.
That's not very far away.
It's not.
Just a couple of months. Well, that's it for today. That's it for this edition of The Game. I'm Mark Simon.
And I'm Bob Marks.
Thank you for being with us. We'll look for you somewhere down the road. Thanks. And thanks to Frank Bravo. Oops, almost cut him off. Almost overlooked our producer. Thanks to Frank Bravo. We'll see you next time.